Hello and welcome to the program. Thank you all for joining us. This is Moneyline with me, Nancy Naji. Today on the program, we will be x-raying and doing an analysis of the various intervention funds of the Central Bank of Nigeria. We do know that the Central Bank of Nigeria has many intervention funds, from agriculture to power to aviation and what have you. And few minutes that we have, we'll be looking at that shortly. I would have the director of the Development Finance Department, the department in charge of those interventions at the Central Bank of Nigeria, join me, Yusuf Yila, in a bit. So you can send your comments. You can also send your questions for all those interventions, like the Targeted Credit Facility, the AXMIS Fund, the PAI Fund, the CAX Fund, so many funds like that. And if you were recipients too of those funds, especially, or of the many funds, or perhaps of the Targeted Credit Facility, you can just buzz me on Twitter or on any other social platform that we are on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter, which I mentioned earlier. And don't forget that we're on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel. So let's get the show underway with our business news. To stimulate investment and economic growth, the federal government has cautioned that too many regulatory requirements harm Nigeria's export potential and has called for the rehabilitation of Nigeria's economic regulatory institutions. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo made the announcement on Tuesday after receiving a report on agro-export from an ad hoc committee of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. He warned that in comparison to Nigeria's neighbors, the over-regulatory procedure causes certification to take longer, placing Nigerian producers behind. The achievement of government's objective of widening the tax base for improved revenue collection through voluntary compliance in line with international best practices will be enhanced through cooperation with and support of major stakeholders in the tax system. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who was represented through the Minister of Finance by the Permanent Secretary, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Aliyu Ahmed, said this at the 40th anniversary of the Chartered Institute of Taxation in Abuja. Emmanuel Aldu, who was there, now brings us the details.
The Nigerian tax system is designed as a means of income generation and is based on the 1948 tax laws of the British during the pre-independence government legacies. Since then, the Nigerian tax system has not been left without reforms. The tax system in Nigeria has undergone several significant reforms, which are aimed at making the main laws simple and preventing outdated provisions of the tax laws. Though several improvements have been made to reposition the Nigerian tax system, the system is still facing numerous challenges, and there are still existence of many contending issues requiring immediate attention despite the improvement. Improving the tax system in Nigeria was the center of discussion at the public lecture to mark the 40 years anniversary of Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Theme: Evolution of Taxation as a Profession in Nigeria, the birth of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, was represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning. Aliyu Ahmed identified the importance of tax to the economic growth, stressing that federal government remains committed to the strategic revenue growth initiative and will continue to ensure Nigeria has a robust tax system.
Government remains committed to the implementation of the strategic revenue growth initiative. A robust tax system is a prerequisite for any economy that is desirous and genuinely committed to growth and development. As part of the effort towards addressing some of these fiscal challenges, we introduced the annual finance bill to support the annual federal appropriation. This has now become a fiscal tradition in the annual preparation of the budget.
Taxation as a key fiscal policy instrument, which is expected to play major roles in executing the development plan in order to achieve desired economic development for nations. Taiwo Edele, who is the fiscal policy partner, an African tax leader at PwC, calls for the need for specific policy reforms necessary to mainstream taxation as a sustainable funding option for government in Nigeria while facilitating inclusive and sustainable development.
Now we have a national development plan, which is a good document. But what are the fiscal imperatives in terms of fiscal policies, tax reforms that we need to do now and over the period of the plan to be able to actualize the plan so that it's not just a dream that stays in the pipeline, but something that becomes a reality for our people.
Earlier in his address, the president, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, additional Adebayo said the evolving nation of taxation demands frequent interactions in order to distill and analyze the topical issues.
It is adding meaningful value to national development in regulating the tax profession and bringing taxation issues to the front burner. Therefore, we consider it worthwhile to reflect over the past years, celebrate what we have achieved, take cognizance of our shortcomings, and to continuously reposition the Institute for the next level of greatness.
We shall also be examining the Nigerian National Development Plan for 2021 to 2025, vis-à-vis the critical role of taxation and fiscal policies in its actualization.
It will be recalled some days back, the Federal Inland Revenue Service announced that it achieved over 100% of its collection target in the year 2021, despite the global economic challenges. No doubt, events like this will help in improving the country's tax system. Emmanuel Haudu reporting for Moneyline with Nancy.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has unveiled an ultra-modern 420 metric tons per day capacity rice milling factory in Kano State. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, while speaking at the inauguration of the Gerewa rice mill, said the factory's construction is in line with the federal government's commitment to safeguarding the country's food security. He urged rice mill operators to get involved in paddy cultivation as part of cooperation with the Nigerian Rice Farmers Association to ensure a long-term supply.
Effects of our efforts to attain food security as a country. Food security remains a cardinal deliverable for every developing economy, as it serves the fulcrum of many other economic development indices. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has been steadfast on the path of economic diversification, and it is heartwarming to note that the puzzles are beginning to align. Rice remains a major staple food for every Nigerian household, and that prominence justifies the attention we have placed on the commodity as a focal part of our food security drive in Nigeria. The gains we are witnessing today are as a result of the consistency in policies and sustained growth in our rice revolution initiatives. We are still not yet there in terms of expectations and potential, but we have made giant strides from where we used to be in terms of rice cultivation and milling in Nigeria. Prior to the launch of the Anchor Rice program by the president in 2015, the country had less than 10 functional integrated mills with a combined capacity of less than 350,000 metric tons. This has grown astronomically to over 60 integrated mills with a combined capacity of over 3 million metric tons as of today.
The Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment has distributed some empowerment equipment worth about 50 million naira to the graduates of its training programs drawn from various parts of Anambra State. The equipment includes small generators, grinding machines, and water pumping generators for soaking water from reservoirs, rivers, and streams. The water generators will be used by smallholder farmers amongst the beneficiaries for irrigating their farms. The Minister of Labor and Employment, Chris Ngige, who handed the items over to the beneficiaries, said the event is the second edition of the empowerment program, stressing that the third and fourth will be held before the end of the year, and that the federal government targets to empower about 3,000 people in Anambra State before the end of this year. All right. That's it for the business news, but let's quickly take a summary of what's been happening in the market space. The NGX All Share Index rose by 1.40%. It closed at 47,111.21 points amid bargain hunting on the shares of Seplat, Conol, Presco PLC, WAPCO, Zenith Bank, and GTCO. The year-to-date gain of the local bourse rose by 10.29%. Elsewhere, NIBOR rose for most maturities tracked on renewed financial liquidity strain. However, the NITTI, what we call NITI, which is defined as the Nigerian Interbank Treasury Bills True Yield, which is a reference rate for tenured money market instruments, that moved in mixed directions. In the OTC bonds market, the values of the FGN bonds remained unchanged for most maturities tracked. On the flip side, the values of the FGN Euro bonds appreciated for all maturities tracked on Tuesday amid a sustained buy. Now, if we take a look at the local currency, the Naira, it depreciated against the US dollar by 10 basis points to 415 Naira 75 kobo to $1 at the investors and exporters FX window. If we look at the foreign reserves, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, the data shows that FX reserves dropped to $40.03 billion. Meanwhile, in South Africa, the GSE was firmer earlier today as investors focused on earnings from companies. In Ghana, petroleum product consumers are expected to pay more at the pumps as Ghana Petroleum Authority introduces the price stabilization and recovery levy. That's what they call it, which is a key factor in the petrol price buildup. You know, in Nigeria, there are discussions around fuel subsidy removal. Should we remove it now or should we leave it? If we move over to Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta hosted a meeting with International Finance Corporation Managing Director Makta Diop. Makta Diop was at the World Bank before. He was, I think, the director in charge of Africa. And President Kenyatta called on the organization and other World Bank constituent financial institutions to provide more support to the private sector to spur Kenya's economic growth. If we take a look at global markets across regions of the world, we saw a rise today, at least overnight, for some Asian markets that traded, while equity markets in mainland China, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea are closed for the Lunar New Year holidays. In the commodities market, oil prices are near $90 a barrel for both Brent crude and US WTI. That's West Texas Intermediate. That's the meaning of WTI. Gold price is steady above the $1,800 an ounce. So that's it. That's just a brief summary of all those numbers that you're seeing on the screen, the green and the red. Just a short summary of what's happening globally as it regards the market. Let's quickly take a break, and when we come back, it will be time for me to have this exclusive conversation with Yusuf Yila, who is the Director of Development Finance Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. It is time for us to use my glasses to x-ray the CBN's interventions. We'll be right back. Don't forget to join us on all our social media platforms. All right, welcome back to the program. Joining me right now is Yusuf Yila, who is the Director of Development Finance Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Mr. Yila, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me again, Nancy. How are you?
I'm well. It's been quite a while since we spoke. I know we spoke last, at least, on TV in 2020 in the heat of the lockdown. Today's program, like I said earlier, I'll be using my glasses to interrogate what you've been doing because it's your department that is in charge of these various intervention funds. Now, let me start my questioning from how many intervention funds does the Central Bank of Nigeria have?
Okay, well, when you say funds, we have, as of today, about 36 programs.
Okay.
In respect to funding, there are various packages for the various interventions that we do. But as of today, we have 36. In the year 2020, we introduced two new interventions, the 100 for 100, which the pilot disbursement was done on Monday, and also the tertiary institutions entrepreneurship scheme, which is really to try and assist the fiscal authorities attack the issue of unemployment, especially amongst our youths, who form a big bulk of our population. So 36 currently running, two new interventions in 2020, and that basket will continue to evaluate, drop some, and then merge some, and then if there's any need, to be able to bring in new ones, indeed we'll bring them.
Okay, these 36 programs, are they across, what sectors are they across? Because I know you have agriculture, manufacturing, and all of that. Run me through some of those sectors that these 36 programs are.
Okay, so I'll quickly just run you through, and I'll try as much as possible not to, talk about things like monetary aggregates, cash reserve ratio, and co that typical Reserve Bank staff talk about, so that there's better understanding, and this will help with advocacy. So I'll start with agriculture, which is really our mainstay. President Muhammadu Buhari has continuously advocated that we should produce what we eat and eat what we produce. So agriculture accounts for 34%, or sorry, 24% of our portfolio as we speak today. And three or four major interventions in that portfolio, of course, the Anchor Borrower Program. We've disbursed over 900 billion to 21 different commodities across all the 36 states and the Federation. Over 4 million farmers have benefited from that program. And you've continuously seen how that has translated to output growth domestically. So that's the Anchor Borrower Program. We also have the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme. While the Anchor Borrower Program is targeted at smallholder farmers, the Commercial Agri Credit Scheme is really targeted at mid-sized to large-scale commercial farmers, either into processing or primary production on a large scale. For that, one of our best paying interventions, we've disbursed over 600 billion. Most of it has come back, and we're very happy. Continuously, we tweak and try and bring in more people into that basket. And then you have the private sector-led accelerated agricultural development scheme. We realize that, especially in the southern part of the country, land clearing is very expensive and it's difficult. So to try and bring in more players into that space, we released those guidelines 2 years ago. And the idea is to be able to cultivate land, so you clear the land, cultivate it, and, you repay over a long period of time. So either with an agricultural title or with any other kind of title you have to the land, you can approach your bank and get a facility for a longer term period. So the Anchor Borrower Program is short term, 3 to 6 month cycle, but we have long gestation crops. So you move that into the private sector-led accelerated agricultural development scheme. So you clear the land, you now cultivate on it, and then you repay over a period of time, typically between 7 and 10 years. So that is on the agri side. You talked about manufacturing. In the year 2020, manufacturing overtook both agri and energy as the largest piece of our portfolio. So manufacturing accounts for 28% of the disbursement that we've done across those 36 interventions. And some of the key interventions we have under the manufacturing portfolio are our real sector support facility, which is really to catalyze domestic production and manufacturing. For that, we've done over 1.4 trillion to over 250 different projects, both in agri-processing, in mining, FMCG, and co. So 1 trillion, that's the flagship manufacturing intervention we have. And recently, we've introduced the 100 for 100, which we launched on Monday. So that will form and catalyze also domestic output. Um, we've disbursed over 23 billion, like you saw on Monday. We're going to be evaluating more applications for the next 100 days, and you should see that pie increase. But remember, as you disburse for manufacturing, there's also that lagging effect because people really need to import items, equipment that they will need. And until they begin to start production, you will not see that output. So I look forward to Q4 this year when a lot of those we disbursed to last year, will have brought in the machines. Some of them are already installing, and then you will see a lot of output. SME is another area that we really intervene in. Compared to manufacturing, agric is not a lot, but significantly we're beginning to bring in more interventions under that space. So the targeted credit facility you talked about is one of those responses we did to COVID-19. As of today, we've disbursed close to 400 billion, which is the threshold, to close to 800,000 of our citizens, both households and SMEs in all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We also have the AXMIS, which is really an uncollateralized loan for those who want to go into either agri, fashion, food processing. You also have the creative finance initiative. That is also very slow, but we've been working with the banks to look at how we can improve that. So people who want to go into IT, movie, music, the type of things that can quickly catalyze growth, bringing a lot of people into the job bracket is the sci-fi space. So I'll quickly go to health. Health, we have the health sector industry facility. We've done over 108 billion. Significant in the last 18 months. Over 59 MRI machines have been funded, 39 CT scan machines, two cancer screening centers. There's a third one in Kano, which the governor also visited yesterday just to see progress on work. Two oncology machines are already in the country. We also have a grant component because we realized that loans only would not do it. So we have a grant component under our health sector research grants, which is really to stimulate research and development in our universities. We've given grants to 5 individuals, one for Lassa fever, which has been ravaging the north central part of the country, and some to do testing kits for the COVID-19 virus. Energy is also a large part of our portfolio, really working with the fiscal to provide market liquidity for the discos and other market players. Energy accounts for 27% of our portfolio. We provide payment assurance facilities to the various discos and GEMCOs across the country. And then there's also a market stabilization facility to really help their OPEX and their CAPEX needs. What we find out is that there's a lot of generation, but distribution increasingly is becoming a problem. So feeder stations that are not working properly, what do they require to be able to ensure that energy is not rejected across the grid? So things like that will provide a CAPEX through their participating financial institutions. Of course, every single thing that we do is through a participating financial institution. So either a deposit money bank, a development finance institutions like BOI or an Nexim, or through a microfinance bank, in the case of the TCF, through the NISAL Microfinance Bank. So this is just a broad overview of some of the interventions that we do in the Central Bank of Nigeria.
You know what, Mr. Yila, I can spend a whole day with you speaking on these interventions if we really want to interrogate at least each of these interventions. But let me just take a few of them, and let's start with the 100 for 100 policy on production and productivity, which we saw the distribution of checks 2 days ago, I guess, the last day of January. Speak to our viewers about how this works. I know the governor of the central bank talked about it in November of last year. So what is this 100 for 100 policy really?
In simple terms, the 100 for 100 policy is really how can we, catalyze domestic output. So we'll choose 100 companies every 100 days, give them loans through their participating financial institutions, through their banks, long dated facilities at single digit interest rates. It's never happened before. Um, so I'll give you an example. You have a company who wants to do processing in country. Typically today, let's take cashew nuts, for example. We export most of it to Vietnam. I'm on the board of Nexim, and most of the credits that we see all the time. Somebody wants to just do primary production, takes the cashew to Vietnam, they just polish it, process it, take it to Europe, and value addition in Vietnam is just 60%. I mean, it's really around 60%. In country in Nigeria, he spent 3 years nourishing that tree, and he keeps maybe 12, 13%. So how can we ensure that we support industries like this so that at the end of the day, the 60% that we keep in Vietnam, you add it to the 13% or 15%, yes, 75% is kept in country, and then we export and bring in effort. So catalyze domestic output, bring in foreign exchange earnings for us, so that we promote non-oil export, you know, and most importantly, try and you know bring in a lot of jobs. So in simple terms, those are the things that we want to achieve. There's a scoring criteria. We release guidelines. You must go through a bank, and they will send in the application. You also send in your application on the portal. Um, the portal is 100 for 100ppp.com. You send in the application so that we can also, as the Reserve Bank, as central bank, put pressure on the participating financial institutions to ensure that they send in those applications quickly, and then we can ensure that we make those disbursements. So these first 23 companies, this first 23 billion we disbursed, the companies were scored. We're going to publish it before the end of the week, the companies that have received all those funds. They are long dated instruments, very favorable concessionary terms. And then most importantly, we'll ensure that the robust M&E process that we've put in place, we see exactly what they're doing so that these funds are used judiciously. We visit the factories, help them if they need FX, put them on priority, ensure that they get this equipment, and then they can employ people and they can improve domestic output. So that's what the 100 for 106. Yes, 23 billion. We have over applications in the pipeline over 250 billion. But this is just the first set, just to ensure that they get the funds quickly. In the next 100 days, indeed, you will see, I can assure you, more than maybe 20 times what we've disbursed on Monday. We evaluate the applications, even those that are dropped, maybe due to documentations or there's no clarity around the number of jobs that they want to bring in or how they're going to repatriate the FX when they get them. We definitely will still speak with them, find out exactly whether when they have the right documentation, they can send in so that they can benefit from the program.
Okay, is there a minimum and a maximum limit for this 100 for 100? There's minimum and maximum loan limits for this 100 for 100 policy. And are there some specialized sectors of the economy that those involved have to apply for this 100 for 100? Can I apply for 100 for 100 as a broadcaster? That's just what I'm asking. So what sectors really can apply?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's an intervention really around manufacturing.
Okay.
How do you promote domestic output? So there are sectors, 4 key sectors that we really look at. So the first is we're looking at those in the energy sector who are really into renewables. Things like manufacturing solar panels locally, batteries, and other associated equipment needed for that. We're also looking at those who are into non-oil export. I talked about, the cashew industry. So agri-processing, things like sesame seed, Then we're also looking at those who are into FMCG. I mean, if you look at since 2015 that President Muhammad Buhari came into power, go and visit any of the small mom and pop shops or, for the middle class, those who go to ShopRite and other stores, and look at how in the last 5 years, um, basic things like, toothpaste, cashew nuts, how the packaging, just take packaging for instance. You will think that, this is something that's manufactured in either Europe or America. And it's because of policies like the 100 for 100 that Governor Godwin Emefiele has put in place, working with the fiscal authorities. So how do we ensure that we can, compete, not only produce these things domestically, but ensure that we can compete and begin to export, not only to West Africa, remember after it's coming, but also to other parts of the world. We do have this capability. Now back to your question. Yes, there's a maximum limit of 5 billion. There's no minimum threshold, but indeed, there are exceptional circumstances that we can, exceed the threshold that we've set based on the justification of the documentation that we receive. If, for instance, somebody wants to either in country begin to manufacture, take for example, gas cylinders, we'll really look at it. We already have a national gas expansion program. Once the gas is being monetized and we start producing it, definitely we will need to increase the number of cylinders that we have. So things like that are the sectors that we look at. But agro-food processing, light manufacturing, renewables, and also there's some aspect of services, things like technology, which quickly contribute to growth as sectors that we look at.
Okay. So we needed to make that clear, at least for our viewers, and I hope that those watching us right now are really learning and perhaps also seeing ways that they can take advantage of some of these interventions, if not all, for those of you that are watching. Speak to me about, out of all these intervention funds that you have, which of them is the most successful, or which, yes, if not one, which of them have been most successful? Because I guess as a department that is in charge of all these interventions and programs, you and your team and even the governor will be looking at some of these details every day. So which of these programs have been most successful? Because some of them have not have been there for a while.
I would say, every single one of them, and I'll leave the viewers for them to be able, especially those who've benefited or those who know their friends who benefited. And I'll also ask you, Nancy, to also tell us one that you think. But for me, and you're right, we do post-mortem, we do evaluations, we do impact assessments, most importantly, because we want to see the outcomes of the interventions once we roll them out. 2-3 weeks ago, we received for about 5 of the interventions, looked at them. And indeed, yes, there might be one or two things that we need to tweak. But largely, every single one of them, take the flagship program of President Muhammadu Buhari, the Ankoboro program. Largely been very successful. You talked about yesterday, I accompanied the governor to Kano to go and commission a rice mill. And you saw the pyramids we did, 1 million bags. That's just a tip of the iceberg. In the factory that we commissioned yesterday, he has a warehouse, that has over 50,000 metric tons of paddy, just to ensure mills in the country have been working in the last 4 months, 2 shifts. Visit any of the rice mills in the country. Where are they getting the paddy from? Farmer incomes have improved in the last 4 years. I come from Gombe, and I went to Gombe in December, interacted with the local community. 6-7 years ago, typically a farmer will need about 6 to 7 bags of maize. He sells them, pay his children's school fees, hospital fees. But today, they take 1 or 2 bags. Yes, they hoard and they keep the other ones, to take advantage of the arbitrage that will come, later, early in the year. Because Nigeria largely depends on rain-fed agriculture, and we do not do a lot of dry season. So you see pressure on prices, around February, March, April. But indeed, farmers who form the bulk of the population are very happy. A lot of them are marrying their kids out, some of them are going for Hajj. So you see farmer incomes, and it gladdens my heart, because it's a root. When the president keeps saying he wants everybody to go into agriculture, and I interrogate the numbers on a daily basis, and I see the margins. Yes, a lot of it is subsistence, but you're beginning to see a lot of commercial-based farming. And productivity, for me, very importantly, has improved. If there's any marker that I want to see on a daily basis, take maize, for instance. Before the advent of the Ankobora program, maize was between 2.5 metric tons per hectare. As we speak today, high yield seeds we give farmers fertilizer on time, not adulterated fertilizer or sand in the bags. They're doing 5 metric tons per hectare. And typically they can pay their loans quicker, and have enough for them to be able to take care of their needs. So if you look at the entire basket, it's been successful. I talked about health. I talked about manufacturing, which is lagging. I talked about today, if you go and you just take a basket, I mean, you go shopping now, look at, there's a split, 90% of the products I tell you that you put in that basket are locally made. Is it rudimentary, even chin-chin? Look at the packaging. Is it chips? Is it toothpaste? So quite a lot of the interventions, you can clearly see the impact around the country. More people are going into agriculture, even the youth, they're more in more sophisticated ways. They're doing things like crowdfunding, put the money together, or is it the TCF that we did, just to push the demand side of things, COVID. You can imagine, and Nancy, I'll ask you to talk about what will have happened if we had not done the TCF, or is it the AXMIS that we've done, uncollateralized loans up to a maximum of 10 million. You don't need, and we've democratized the process. 5-6 years ago, would a farmer have been able to approach a commercial bank and ask them, to give him a loan? It's not possible. How is he going to be able to even communicate or enter the bank branch? Farmers today, farmer incomes have improved on a yearly basis. They're getting better with productivity. We've also established the NISA Microfinance Bank just to ensure they have over 106 branches, across the country. That will increase, and they also use technology to be able to reach a lot of people so that they can push this AXMIS and the targeted credit facility. We also have the TIES. A lot of our graduates, leave university. They're all looking for white-collar jobs. We're saying, look, entrepreneurship, we can provide, funding for you, targeted at some sectors. IT is quickly coding and all that. Fashion, you might want to do a small yogurt making a factory. So many of them. Or is it energy? National mass metering, we have a 6 million meter gap. We've provided funding for 1 million. Revenues have increased almost 20% since we started that program. December was the highest collection month ever. So we'll continue to, if you look across the 36 interventions we carry, all of them largely have been successful. And I must commend the governor for, his wisdom in crafting quite a couple of these interventions. 100 for 100, TIES, the Anchor Borrow program. Imagine what would have happened without the ABP, COVID. Nigeria didn't go begging for food. Every country locked its borders. We're not getting imports. Go to Cotonou and look at how the rice rates have declined. The amount of ships that used to go there.
Okay, Mr. Yila.
We're really self-sustaining. Maize, for instance, 10% growth last year.
Okay, Mr. Yila, if you can allow me and if you can hear me, let me ask you further.
Last year. And indeed, a lot of it, with the CFA stronger now, a lot of our, and that's even the farmers are even happier because a lot of it is going out as export. Remember, there was drought in Nigeria Republic last year. So if you go to the major markets in Kano, Kaduna, our neighboring countries change small CFA, they're coming to buy a lot. So that's also earning us some good money.
Okay. Now, since you brought me to the rice pyramid issue, let's interrogate some of those issues. And I think it's best that you use this opportunity to take a look at it. Rice pyramids launched, I think, was it not last week or so by the president? We saw a lot of things on social media, though. We sent our own camera people there, and we saw that those were not padded woods, as it were. So at least I can confirm that. That is the Abuja Rice Pyramid. But if you're saying all those things has been successful around food, why is food still expensive in Nigeria? Why is still the price high? Take a look at local rice. It's selling above 25,000 naira a bag. Food inflation is high. So if we take a look at what the Central Bank of Nigeria has done in terms of these interventions, we should at least see that food price should come down. Then the other part which I want you to answer to is around the moratorium for these loans. When is the moratorium for these, like TCF and all of that, especially those that were given around 2020, when should it expire? I know March 2022, has it been extended, or what's the central bank, what's the department saying about that?
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. So, I mean, it's a global phenomenon. Prices increased 28% in 2020. So, it's not just Nigeria, and we're not isolated. We're connected to the global community. Like I explained, there are three or four factors. There's pressure, especially from neighboring countries, to try and take what we've produced. And as a farmer, we run a market economy. Uh, if I've spent 3, 4 months cultivating maize and somebody's offering me a higher price because it's changed some safer, he will take it. Um, but we're not just sitting back. We recognize that there is a big problem with grain aggregators and those who hoard this product so that they can take advantage of the arbitrage, because we do really large number of cultivation in the wet season and very little during the dry season. In most countries with irrigation, dry season gives you better yield and more productivity. Um, but we'll be working also with the Water Resources Ministry to look at how we can increase, especially around the river basin authorities, increase production in that regard. So there are structural factors, things like, remember, transportation has increased, and when you mill rice, diesel prices and all that. But like I said, we have a target band. The government has mandated us, to try and work out how we can ensure, remember, our function as central bank is really price
Price
stability.
stability,
So
yeah.
we're working with all the relevant players. Yes, the structural factors, but how can we improve yield? And remember, our population is also growing. You know, um, Quite a lot of people who need this staple foods that we produce. But remember, inflation has been decelerating in the last 6, 7 months. Yes, just a bit of uptick in December. But if you look at the numbers and await January numbers, you will see that come down. So there's a target price for rice. We'll work with the other agencies relevant, try and ensure that we kill and we punish those who are these products. Yeah, there's been outputs, large numbers of outputs. Output grew 10%. Forget all this insecurity. Yes, there's insecurity, but indeed, because of the yields that we're getting net, it improved at 10% last year because of better farm practices and improved productivity. So you have, yes, insecurity. Quite a lot of people have not gone to the farm. Some have been burnt. You also have structural factors, transportation. If you go close to the market, to the farm, go to Gombe today. You get the price of paddy, factor in locally there, maize should be around max. You get it at about 18,000, 18,500 per bag. But as you move down south, because of transportation issues, other structural factors, you see the prices. One of the things that we've done to try and attack these prices is that when we give out loans, for example, let me take maize as an example, to the farmers and the prime anchors. So these are big time players who access the anchor borrower program. Instead of taking the cash back and this produce goes to the hand of a middleman, what the governor has directed is that let's start taking this produce as repayment. And indeed, in certain commodities, we take the entire output. So if I have 1,000 hectares and I cultivate maize, and my output, minimum I'll get is 5,000 metric tons. And I need about 1,200 metric tons to repay my loan. Instead of the remaining 4,800 going into the hands of a middleman or an aggregator who's just going to store it and wait 6 months to sell it when the market is up, we normally collect it and put it into a strategic maize reserve. What we do is we use that to stabilize prices. And that's why you saw the price of maize stabilize really last year. We're beginning to do that program for maize. And we ask that all the millers that take a lot of the paddy that we've funded and has been cultivated either through refund station or through the prime anchors, to come out and speak up about the activities of these speculators, point them to us, and working with the relevant authorities will ensure that they are busted. But indeed, whilst global prices have increased 28%, like I said, we're doing, I mean, the measures that we're taking, both administrative and to ensure that these prices come down. Maize, we'll use our strategic maize reserve to bring down prices. The commodity exchange has really, I mean, the president gave us approval, to retool it and to revamp it. There's a new management team in place, a new board has been put in place. These are the activities of the commodity exchange, and you will see them, play their role.
Okay.
Anytime they see uptick in prices, they release into the market to just make sure that prices are stable, are stable, which is very, very important. Um, yes, I admit, like I said earlier on, that there are structural factors, but we will not just sit down and rest on our oars, and we're working hard to ensure that we see these prices come down, and most importantly, not come down, but just stabilize. But we need to be able to produce more,
Okay.
most importantly.
Okay, the question of moratorium, you did not answer
Then the
that.
second question. So
Yes.
let me address the second question around moratorium. The TCF is already due for those who took the first set. So your repayment is going to commence in February. And most importantly, there's a global standing instruction as part of what they signed to be able to access the loan. So anywhere they have money in any of the banks, microfinance, anywhere, we will definitely, once the money is due, we will recall or we'll just debit the bank for the funds so that other citizens can benefit. Um, the moratorium program you talked about ends. I mean, a new regime keeps up 1st March 2022. Governor has already provided forward guidance on that. Um, Interest rates, yes, we're at the 5% regime, but he will definitely make an announcement at the end of this month. We've, as part of our COVID response, we've really done enough to be able to help, manufacturers, small businesses, and you can see that. I mean, if you look at manufacturing PMI, it's picked up, and if you look at general economic activities, we are positive and we're happy at where it is. So, but wait for the announcement at the end of
Okay.
this month on what the new regime is.
Okay, does it mean that targeted credit facility has closed now? So it's for those that were giving money from 2020, they should start repaying. That's the first part of the question as we close. The second part of the question is, apart from TCF for households and businesses, is there a way that your department and the Central Bank of Nigeria is evaluating and monitoring as well as trying to get your return on investment? Because you're investing in the economy. So how are you monitoring and evaluating your ROIs in other interventions? I know I picked it up while you were speaking earlier, but I know that you also have interventions that you would not necessarily take products like you do for rice and for other commodities like for healthcare and all of that. So how are you also going to monitor and evaluate your ROIs on those interventions? Very quickly, we've got to go.
Okay, so very quickly, and I like the fact that even though you didn't amplify it, that you sent your cameramen to those pyramids. I mean, all sorts of stories, wish-wash that they were not pyramids, that they were not. But it's a good thing, and we ask that yourself and your other journalists go and see as the millers speak, because this entire agri program is a value chain, and we'll definitely improve our advocacy. Maybe we've not done a good job at that. Right from when it is cultivated, to when it is harvested, and to when it's taken to the mill for rice. In fact, yesterday in the press, I saw some funny reports. I think somebody sent it to me on WhatsApp. I belong to one group of happy people, and somebody said that the rice was imported from maybe neighboring. And I'm saying neighboring countries that had drought. How much rice is Nigeria Republic going to produce? That you will import. So they're going to stay. It's the other way around, because of the CEFA, that's a bit stronger. They've been taken out. So we'll definitely do better advocacy, show the cultivation, and we do document everything. The governor has really asked that every single thing that we do, Anchor Borrow program, all the interventions, manufacturing, before the equipment comes in, we already have still photographs. We also have videos. We're funding the Lagos Railway, both the blue and the red line. I think I went on a visit 3 months ago to just go and look at progress. So we have both videos and still images. For Ankobora, we have all the BVNs of all those who benefited, and so indeed, it will be, I'm amazed at how, people play politics with programs that, really contribute to national output. But, you've already clarified that you've already sent your cameraman. Please, we ask that you continue to, show these images to our viewers so that detractors, are shamed.
Okay.
Then to your question around M&E, we have robust
Very
M&E
quickly.
processes in
Yeah.
place. Every single guideline that we release, just look at the last page of the guideline, you see the M&E
Okay.
part. We'll do unscheduled visits. Let me take rice, for instance. When we see our mills, because most of them are financed under CAT, we try as much as possible to look at how they carry inventory, so that they don't keep, too much rice. They push
Okay.
this rice out to the market. That also helps to stabilize
Mr.
prices
Yila,
so that
can you
there's
hear
no
me?
pressure on them on demand. Then we do baseline studies. So before, like I said earlier, we've just received post-intervention impacts on some of them. We're free to anybody who wants to see them. And we do recalibrate. So it's not just doing the M&E.
Okay.
So I give you an example for our MSME
Mr. Yila, I think
intervention.
we've got to
60%
go.
of the fund is
We've
set
got
aside
to
for
go.
women.
We've
The
got to
Northeast,
go. Can you hear
where I
me?
come from, is the poorest part of the country.
Wow.
And a lot of our women are not participating in these interventions. How do we ensure and how do we bring them out? So we have a financial inclusion team that is also working on that.
Mr. Yila, we've got to go. If you can hear me. Okay, Mr. Yila, if you can hear me, I'm afraid this is the much we can take on today's edition of the program. You know that earlier I said I can speak with you for a whole day on this, and I think I'll promise our viewers that you will return because there are so many things which I've not even delved into. So if you can hear me, I'm craving your indulgence. We'll reschedule so that we can talk about some of these issues which you have brought about. It's not a day, it's not a just one edition show, I know that. But thank you very much for coming on the program. I've been speaking with Yusuf Yila, who is the Director, Development Finance Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. I apologize. I know we would have taken like a phone-in for the fuel subsidy removal suspension, but we'll take that on another day. So be the best you can be, be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. I'll see you all again tomorrow, God willing. Bye now.